Welcome to the Legacy Leaders Podcast. Are you doing the best for your client to help them create their legacy? Are you creating a plan that goes far beyond finances to help people ensure that it becomes the driving force behind all decisions? On this podcast, hosts Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller will help you with growing your practice and your clients' peace of mind. Together, they bring the best and brightest minds to share with you how to help your clients develop their best legacy. And now, here are your hosts, Katie Beth and Stan.
Welcome back to the Legacy Leaders Podcast with your hosts, Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. Our guest today is the Managing Director at Lenox Advisors, whose drive is putting her clients' best interest first. With nearly 30 years of experience in a variety of financial services, we are so excited to welcome to the show Abbe Large. Abbe, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So before we dive right in, I was hoping you could take just a few minutes and talk to our listeners a little bit about your background and what got you into this industry, and then also just tell them a little bit about what you do with Lenox Advisors as well.
Okay, so how I got into this business. Well, I fell into it. I don't know if anybody actually goes to school to be what I'm doing here, but 30 years ago, I was in a position where I had graduated from a very prestigious journalism school, and I wanted to be in advertising, copywriting, creative, art direction. And when I graduated from Scripps School of Journalism, I moved to New York City. I got a job at a very large advertising agency, and I needed a portfolio in order to get a job as a copywriter or an art director. So I went to school at night, School of Visual Arts, and to get my portfolio together. And I was an assistant to the creative director of a very large agency. And I was probably, in my opinion, the worst assistant on the face of the planet. But I was very attracted to the advertising world and the creative world. Fast forward, I went to a smaller agency and to get more experience, work more hands-on with a creative director. And I was still his assistant. Unfortunately, with advertising, if you lose a client, then people get laid off. So they lost 3 clients in a span of a month. And unfortunately, I was on the chopping block, and I took it really hard. I was sent to an outplacement and counseling, and they got me a job, believe it or not, at Playboy magazine. So I was still in the advertising arena, but I was in the publishing component, in the sales part of the publishing world at Playboy magazine. And it was fun. It was this, that, but I was still an assistant and just really floundering. And the head of international publishing came into my little cubicle and he called me a maverick. He said, "You don't belong here. You need to get yourself a sales position." I said, "Well, how am I supposed to get that? They want 5 years of sales experience in order for me to be hired as a sales representative." So a few months go by, maybe a year, I can't remember. And I was still doing what I'm doing. But one day I walked into my boss's office and he had a little cooler, and I was putting in Coca-Cola cans. And as I was putting them in, they were rolling out. And he started cracking up and he said, "If you don't leave here and get yourself a sales job, I'm going to have you fired. This is ridiculous. You're wasting your time." I said, "You're 100% right." So I wound up getting a sales job at a women's health club selling health memberships. And it was a time in my life where I was broke. I living in New York City, and my apartment was going co-op. So I was getting kicked out or you had to buy it. I was dating some schmuck that thought I should be working at the Gap. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's what he thought my potential was. And let's see. Yeah, it was a lost era of my life, but this place sent me to a sales seminar. And in the first 2 rows, there were all these people from the Cowan Financial Group. And one of them came up to me, we became friends, and he gave my business card to a sales manager there. And that sales manager called me, I kid you not, 5 or 6 times. I finally went in for the interview because I wanted just to get this person off my back. But I never thought in a million years that I would enter into a financial planning world or career. But I went to the interview and everyone was happy and healthy. And there was a great vibe coming from all of them. They were all in charge of their own destiny. And I said, I don't know what's happening here, but whatever this is, I want in. And so I spent, after that, a lot of time getting my licenses and working my tush up. I think I cried every night in the shower. This was so hard, but I had like, I wasn't moving to Texas. Failure was just not an option for me. But in the first year, I placed the top 5 producers in the entire company in their first year in the business. There was, over 7,000 people in the company, and you get this award. It's called Freshman 5, and it's 5 of the top producers in their first year in the business, which I had done. And I was the only woman to do it at the time. And I was able to buy my apartment. I found my husband. I found my best friends. I had money in the bank, and I found my career, and off to the races I was. And that's how I got into the business. And now here we are 30 years later.
That is a very interesting and very incredible backstory. I love that. So tell us a little bit. I know there's a backstory that relates to your dad that kind of sparked your passion in particular for how you view things and the way that you do things. Tell us a little bit about how his struggle really impacted you and how you took what you learned from that and used that to help clients now.
Sure. Let me preface by saying that my first few months in the business, and the reason why I was off to such a fast start, was because one of the people that were there that I became very friendly with, he was diagnosed with cancer, lymphoma, and I watched him go from this heavy, jolly, bearded gentleman to this scrawny, skinny, bald man. And I watched how that disease took his life. And that sparked a passion in me to make sure that everybody protected their income with disability insurance. And that really sparked that passion. Like, nobody said no to me, because I was just like, everyone has to have this. And I watched all of the products that he had on his life, the life insurance, the disability insurance, all of these products that he had purchased. I saw them in action. So for many years, I clung to that feeling, and I didn't take no for an answer. Like, I really felt strongly about it. And then my dad got sick years later, and he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And they moved to Texas, as I said before. So the amount of money that I spent to travel there, to make sure that he had care, all of the nurses and the medicines and the relationship with my sister and my mother and all of these things, it took a huge toll. But here's the thing. We bought long-term care insurance for him, disability insurance for him, life insurance for him. So what we did was we took the money, that money conversation and the feeling and the emotions that come with money, we completely removed it with the products that we put in place for him. And I saw firsthand how all of that money came rolling in the exact moment that I needed it and my family needed it, so that all we had to focus on was him and loving him and love and family. So it just, I don't know, it just triggered something in me, because I was living what I show my clients, and I was living the power of that and how crucial it is. And so I was unapologetic about what I was saying to people, because I lived through it and it was really heavy. And so that's my conviction. That's my why. And that's my purpose, is to have that authenticity of what I went through and the feelings that I felt. I was in that position. And I think a lot of people are not in that position. Like, they don't have that personal story, and maybe they do, and they're not tapping into it. But I would encourage any of your listeners that are in financial planning, that if they've ever had a personal story, They talk about it. They really talk about it. I think it just brings a reality and an authenticity of what it is that they're recommending to their clients and why, if that makes sense.
It does. And that is such a great example of how you can take a negative experience that you had, but you were so well prepared for that. And really, to even as you were describing it, and I know this is true for Stan as well, I was really able to connect with the fact that this is not some product that you're just selling. This was something that gave you the time and energy and financial bandwidth to really focus on your dad in his time of need. And that no one wants a diagnosis like that. No one wants to hear the word cancer. But really, from what you described, though that's negative, you kind of had the best possible outcome because you were so well prepared for that. So you can feel very comfortable and very passionate about genuinely pitching it from your heart to your clients. And I love that. I absolutely love that. You touched on a little bit, obviously. So you had your dad, and then you have kids. You and your husband have kids as well. Talk to us about you're a career woman, you're taking care of parents, you're taking care of kids. How do you prepare and how did you manage all of those years in the middle, those sandwich years of caring for both parents, managing a career, being there for your husband, and then taking care of kids as well? Those are the years I'm in. So, what are your tips, tricks, advice, and wisdom for people navigating both a career and those things as well?
Oh, that is a loaded question, but it's very loaded. But I can only start by saying that when I got pregnant with my twins, now they're 23 years old now, but it was a long time ago. I remember being pregnant and everyone kept asking me, what are you going to do? Are you going to still work? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to do what makes me happy because I'm a firm believer that if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And so what made me happy was working. But here's the thing, a lot of people invest in their business. But what is my business? My business is not just outside of my home. My home is also my business. What's inside of my home, my children, this is my business too. And so I felt very strongly about investing back into that part of my business. So I hired help, right? I hired a baby nurse the minute I found out I was having twins. Like I just immediately. And that was the beauty of what I do, right? Because I control my own destiny. I'm not being paid a salary. I work and I get rewarded for my efforts. So that was one of the things that really drew me to this career, especially as a woman, because I can control my own hours. I can control where I am. I can just control my own destiny. And that was really attractive to me. So when I was dropping my children off at school, I would one day show up in full on suit and the next day show up just regular jeans and a t-shirt. And they'd be like, what do you do for a living? Like what? I was living this double life. But I felt extremely blessed because I not only had support in my home, but I also felt I needed support, right, in my business. So you hire your assistants, you hire your staff. And so I'm a firm believer in giving up control to allow others to make you better at what you're doing. And I also felt that it was important to create this balance of having my career and also being a mom and also taking care of the parents and the husband and all these things, because everything rests on the mom, right? Like the kid has a cavity, who's going to the dentist? Not dad, mom is. But so the career allowed me the ins and the outs and to be able to ask for help when I needed it and insert myself where it was important. And it made me a better mother. It made me a better wife and friend and daughter. It made me better because I felt that I had this balanced life. It wasn't all of one thing. So I got a little, and that requires setting boundaries, right? That requires setting a schedule. It requires figuring out, when are you going to go into the office? When are you going to be at home? When are you going to do these things? And so throughout the years, I just authentically led myself and my mind, body, and spirit to what made me happy. So, for example, Tuesdays and Thursdays were my days in the office. I was on the train. I went into the city, worked all day. I came home. I was in the house by 6. But from the time that I left to the time I came home, it was nothing but work. No, I wasn't messing around. Like, I was really efficient. So it was a matter of, I developed the efficiency of working quite early in my career. And so what was great about that was Mondays, I had no help at home. So Mondays, it was all me. And by Monday night, I couldn't wait to get to the office. So Tuesday, I had that break. And then Tuesday night, I couldn't wait to get home because I missed my children, and I would come home and spend the day Wednesday. By the Wednesday night, I couldn't wait to go back on Thursday. So I had this terrific balance. And then my husband and we were together on Saturday and Sunday. So it just created this weaving in and out of help where I needed it, focus where I needed to be. And a lesson that I've learned recently is be where you're supposed to be, not necessarily where you want to be. And there's a big difference there, right? I remember a few years had gone by, and my daughter one day asked me, "Mom, why do you have to go to work?" I said, "Sweetheart, because it makes me a better mom. I'm helping people with their financial lives. I'm making a difference in my clients' lives. I'm making a difference in my life. And I'm just better all around. And I love what I do." And she said, "Oh my gosh, I hope I can do that one day." And so I felt like I set an example for her. And I also set an example for my son, for his significant other, to have that support and that understanding so that you can be the best version of yourself. And that's what I try to do every day.
I love that. And then, like I said, as a mom of young kids, we have 5. Our oldest is 16. Our youngest is 5. One of the things that struck me that you just said was a few minutes ago, you talked about how you were creating the life you want, creating that balance, and you weren't afraid to ask for help. And for all of whether you're a mom or a dad, for the people listening, I just want to encourage you to not be ashamed about looking for help, whether it's help with your business, help with your kids at home. I can't imagine twins. That gives me anxiety. I know that's a lot to manage and a lot you had to manage. And so for those listening, I hope you can take away, whether you're a mom or a dad or you work or stay at home or what it is, I hope that you guys aren't afraid to ask for help, to bring other people in to help find that balance. Stan, I have taken all of the questions so far because I'm stealing all of Abby's time. So I apologize. What questions do you have for Abby?
No, there are lots of other questions. I'm really intrigued by something you said in your bio. I'm reading here where it says that you're a passionate advocate for families and individuals dealing with difficult financial realities. Normally, when I think about financial advisors are really seeking out people that are not having difficult financial realities. They're individuals that have had financial success, have accumulated wealth. So have you figured out how to create an opportunity around this idea of working with families that are having difficult financial realities?
I'm a very strong believer in you get what you give. And I don't chase money. I chase fixing a problem. I chase the embracing of people, the humanity of it. And I don't want to work with jerks. And my focus is working with people who love their families, who want to protect their families, who respect what I do and say. And if I can help that family get on a course that they're comfortable with, where they're creating financial independence, and I'm also teaching them how to be good stewards and examples for their children to be financially responsible. That's my why. My why is not my paycheck. My why is not chasing some just successful people, because successful people, there are many definitions to what success means for people, right? And I don't know, it's not all about the money for me. I feel that that's very secondary.
I'm really glad I asked the question, and you're certainly not going to get any argument about that from Katie Beth or myself. I am a little bit curious, though, to get a sense of what some of those conversations would be like? What, when you're dealing with somebody that's at that stage of some struggle, what are you saying to them?
Let me help you. Let me help you. Let's do a discovery call. Let's get under the hood. Let's figure this out. What is it about money that's important to you? Tell me about how you were raised. What was your relationship with money, with your family, with your parent? These are questions that are really important because it goes into the behavioral aspect and the emotional aspect of money. And I think it's quite important to crack that code right up front.
So what you're saying, I think, is that there's some kind of an unconscious attitude that people bring to money, to wealth. And I say unconscious, they're not aware of it. And because they're unaware of it, it drives behaviors, and quite often drives behaviors in a really negative way that produces some of the outcomes that you see, I guess, right?
What are you referring to specifically?
Well, not being able to manage spending, for example, would be, I would think that's a pretty common issue, right? Not having a pattern of saving, putting away for the future. And I think I also heard you talk about not identifying risks that could be insured. We all have the potential to become disabled and non-functional in the workplace, right? We could all have strokes and or illnesses or accidents, whatever. And the insurance industry has a pretty decent solution for that, right? But you have to implement it. And so people have to know about that. So part of it, I think, is a mind shift away from just moving through your day, your week, your year with an unconscious awareness of just needing to find money to do whatever, but developing a conscious awareness that financial security is something that you actually can create given tools and strategies. And those are, I'm going out on a limb here and guessing that those are the tools and strategies that you're introducing to your clients.
Yes, I think at the end of the day, they're typically my clients, when I speak to them, when I get introduced to them, they have already done things. They've purchased their property and casualty insurance, their car insurance, their life insurance, their disability insurance, their investments, their 401ks, they're qualified, their rollovers, all of these things they're doing with different people, different times. And there's just this lack of coordination. And I find that a lot of people in the accumulation phase of their lives, they don't realize, they just keep making money, spending money, maybe saving money, making money, saving money, spending money. There's this just chugging along behavior, right? And when I'm there, I'm like, let me be your quarterback. Let's take a look at all of this and let's make a plan that we can really look at from 30,000 feet and see where the inefficiencies are. Let's talk about what's missing, how you can save money here, what maybe you're not being tax efficient there. There's all these different innuendos that happen. And if you're not taking a good fact find, shame on you, because that's where you need to find all this information out. And everyone can meet people that are successful. And most successful people have done something, but sometimes the relationship is not there. Sometimes they haven't looked at it in decades. Things are outdated. Things are beneficiary informations, for example. I can't tell you how many times people have the wrong beneficiary. So there's always something to button up. There's always something to talk about that you could be more efficient with. And that's where my bailiwick is, right? Like being that quarterback for people and making sure that there is a plan, but it's a plan that takes you from accumulation phase into the distribution phase, into the preservation phase of your life. Most people don't think about that.
Let me just say, I think what you're describing is the perfect antidote to this notion I keep hearing a lot these days. If you watch the stock market, which I'm sure you do, the big hot stock this year is Nvidia, right? And there are all these other artificial intelligence companies coming along. There's this whole notion out there that financial advisors are actually going to become obsolete because, gosh, you can have an AI bot manage your money for you. But what you're describing about the relationship that you have with your clients, I think we may be centuries away from having an AI bot that can do what you do. That's the differentiator, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Explain a little more what your thoughts are with that.
Well, I know people who have robo accounts, right, managing their money, and so they don't need an advisor. They have a relationship with the computer. They put their money in the account. They dial in their risk tolerance, and the computer does all the investing for them. But the point that you're making, I think, is that the conversation you're having with your clients is not about the issue of how do we manage, what ETFs do we put our money in. It's really about the larger, the 30,000 foot conversation. How do you think about money? How do you think about wealth, and what's its role in your life? And what do you have to do to be a responsible adult to navigate through life successfully and with financial responsibility? And so I think that is a dimension of coaching that transcends just deciding on what to invest your money in. And it sounds like that's the value add. What I'm hearing is that's the value add that you bring to your client relationship.
I think when you're dealing with humans, there is a value add because AI doesn't know how you feel. AI doesn't know how you were raised. AI doesn't know what your trigger points are or your emotional aspect of how you feel about money. Money is a very interesting topic that drums up a lot of emotions. And I'm sorry, but there's no way that you could put in an AI equation and have it be the same as an advisor. There's just not. People are
I think
people.
it,
Place
I think
people.
that's certainly true when you have the kind of conversations that you're having with clients.
That is correct. That is exactly right. And I think it's extraordinarily important for the clients, not just the producers, but the advisor, but the client to understand that if I'm going to do something that's meaningful, then someone needs to know what I mean. Right? Someone needs to understand me and what my goals and objectives are in my heart, in my mind, in my soul. I don't think that's I don't think that's replaceable.
Every financial advisor who's listening to this podcast needs to stop the car, close the door, and rewind and listen to the last 10 minutes of this conversation again. This is what you're describing, I believe, represents the opportunity for real success in the financial services space. This is an incredibly valuable lesson, and you have it right here today. Just rewind 10 minutes and listen to it again.
Well, thank you, Stan. I appreciate that. I'm a very firm believer that it's very hard to replace people and relationships and feelings and emotions. And it's quite important for what we do.
I think it's all important for what you do. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Well, before we run out of time, Abbe, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know before we have to sign off?
Well, if you want to work with me, you can certainly reach out to me. I have received a lot of positive feedback on my other podcasts that I do, and they're all listed on my LinkedIn page. And I'm open to anyone that needs financial help as long as they're nice. I'm okay. So yes, that would be about it. But these questions were really insightful. Thank you for asking them.
Absolutely. Well, for all of our listeners, we really want to thank you for joining us again. This has been the Legacy Leaders Podcast with your hosts, Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. Our guest today was Abbe Large, and to get connected with Abbe, you can find her at lenoxadvisors.com, or you can connect with her on LinkedIn. And for those of you on the road and all of those good things, we're actually going to link those for you in the show notes so you can go and grab them. We are so excited that you guys joined us today. And Abbe, thank you again so much for jumping on with us for a few minutes to really share your insights and your wisdom and your experience. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it was wonderful. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to the Legacy Leaders Podcast with Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller. For more information on them and the show, please visit pinnaclelegacylaw.com. If you like what you've learned today, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.